That death toll stands now tragically at 19, with half of the victims just children. And according to police sources, they tell us that the youngest among the dead, just 3 years old. This building was consumed by smoke, trapping people on almost every single floor. They believe that it was caused by an electric space heater that malfunctioned. Clearly, there is a lot that needs to be done for the survivors and the victims' families as well. To talk more about that this morning, we are joined by Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson. Borough President, tragic circumstances to be here with you this morning. We thank you for joining us. First and foremost, can you tell us anything on the investigation?
Sure. The investigation remains underway, and I want to thank the fire department. The FDNY responded within minutes. Over 200 officers responded to this 5-alarm fire yesterday morning. It's just tragic. It's heartbreaking, and I am praying for all the families, those that have lost children and loved ones, those that are still trying to find their loved ones that have not heard from them yet. This was a devastating fire. We've never seen anything like this in New York City in over 30 years. And certainly we mourn the loss of those that perished, and we're praying for many family members that remain in the hospital. We're back here today because we are going to work with Office of Emergency Management and all the elected officials to open a new evacuation site at Monroe College. We have a lot of donations that are coming in, and I want to thank all New Yorkers and certainly all Bronxites for their incredible love and support. People have extended themselves far beyond this community, and we're so grateful for the love.
And we're seeing hundreds and thousands of dollars come in. What's needed the most for anyone who's out there this morning and they just want to do something to help? What can they do?
Right. So many of the residents, we believe, will be allowed to re-enter their apartments today, but we're going to need a lot of toiletries and bedding items and clothing, coats for adults as well as children. There are a lot of Muslim families that are here with multiple children in each household, so certainly we're very culturally sensitive to that. And then over the next several days, we will do more assessments because we do believe that the entire third floor has been fully damaged, where many of those residents will not be able to return anytime soon. So they are going to be either temporarily relocated or possibly permanently relocated.
And I assume the Red Cross is assisting the families. They only get, what, 3 days? And what happens after those 3 days?
So typically it's a 3-day period for temporary shelter in local hotels that is provided by the American Red Cross through a contract with the city. But after the 3 days, HPD, the housing agency, usually takes over. But in this particular instance, the landlord has offered to provide the funding necessary to cover the hotel expenses for as long as is needed. So even if it's beyond the 3 days, the landlord will cover the expenses. And right now we have families in 4 hotels.
Okay, so specifically about this building, we know that when you were a city councilor several years back, they passed the law that doors had to close in all of these buildings. Speaking with Council Member Borelli this morning, he says this building should not have been immune from that law. What do you know about it?
So we also know that this building was constructed in the early 70s, and so some of the laws they were not subjected to in terms of exterior fire escapes, but having a sufficient and working fire alarm and fire system, working smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, all of that required by law. And we have heard a lot of concerns from the residents that the fire alarms consistently went off. And on this day yesterday, as the fire alarm was going off, people thought it was just a normal day. They didn't even realize that it was an actual fire. So that is a real concern for us. I think it's also a concern as we talk about fire education and fire safety. If you are in need of just exiting your apartment, you have to close the door. And in the hastiness of running for your lives, it doesn't always happen. And we get that. Education is important, but real life circumstances doesn't always translate. But we have to keep reinforcing that you have to close doors if you are running in the scene of a fire.
Certainly this brings up the issue of fire safety and having that plan. So lots of these high-rise buildings, they are fireproof.
Correct.
Remind people of what they need to do if there's a fire in their building.
If there is a fire in your building, obviously do everything you can to take your children and exit your building. Do not use the elevator, use the stairwell. If there is an exterior fire escape, use that. But you have to get out. You have to close the door behind you, because if the fire is in your particular apartment, it's going to escape and it's going to rise. Smoke inhalation has been the cause of a lot of the serious injuries because many families were trapped in the hallway, they were trapped in the stairwell, and they were ultimately found. Many of them are in the hospital, some perished, but it's because of the open door that the fire was able to travel as fast as it did.
This is Borough President Vanessa Gibson joining us here this morning to talk more about this tragedy, the worst one that we have seen involving fires in the past 3 decades here in the city. Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, everyone, for your continued prayers for Bronx residents and families. We appreciate the support.
Of course, and those donations, keep them coming. It will help certainly tremendously in these very difficult days going forward. For now, though, that's the latest live here in the Fordham section of the Bronx. I'm Anthony DiLorenzo, PIX11 News.
Good information right there.